My name is Alexa. I'm sitting in my cozy apartment, the silence only broken by the persistent buzzing of my phone. The screen lights up with 35 missed calls from Mom. A shiver runs down my spine as memories of the past flood back. It's been 10 years since I walked out of that toxic family, but it seems they're back, wanting something from me once again. I remember that fateful night like it was yesterday. I was sitting at the dining table with my family. The room was filled with the warm aroma of a delicious meal, but the atmosphere was ice cold. Mom looked straight at me, her eyes unblinking, and held out her hand. Alexa, give me your credit card. Your sister, Lily, needs $200,000 for her new business venture. I glanced at Lily. She was twirling her hair, looking bored, expecting me to solve her problems as always. I took a deep breath and said, no. In an instant, Mom's hand shot out and slapped me across the face. The force was so strong that the silverware on the table rattled. The pain was searing, but what hurt more was Lily's smirk. It was a look of pure entitlement. I stood up without a word and walked out into the night. I changed my number, moved to a new city 3 hours away from my hometown, and got a new job. I didn't tell them where I was. For the first year, I was constantly on edge, afraid they'd find me. But they never tried to reach out, which was almost more painful. Looking back, it all started when we were kids. I was the responsible one, always doing my homework and helping around the house. Lily, on the other hand, was the pampered princess. Mom would often say, Alexa, you're strong. Lily needs your help. I took it as a compliment, not realizing it was a trap. When I was 16, I got a job at a local bookstore. I saved every penny to buy a used car. But 2 weeks before I had enough money, Lily crashed her bike and damaged a neighbor's fence. Mom came into my room and told me they needed to use my car fund to pay for the damages. When I protested, she said, family sacrifices, Alexa. Don't be selfish. I gave in, and Lily got a new bike, while I took the bus until I was 22. In college, the situation got worse. I went to a state university on a scholarship and worked 2 part-time jobs to pay for my expenses. Lily went to an expensive private art school, and my parents paid for everything. Once, when I came home for Thanksgiving, I was exhausted from working double shifts. I was wearing old, worn-out shoes, while Lily was showing off a new designer handbag that Mom had bought her for getting a B in an art class. When I mentioned that I'd made the dean's list with a 4.0 GPA, Mom barely looked up from the cooking and said, that's nice, Alexa. Your book, smart, but Lily is creative. We have to encourage her. After I graduated and got a job as a junior analyst at a big firm, Mom saw my salary as a family resource. The requests started small. Alexa, the car needs repairs. Can you send $500? Alexa, Lily needs a new dress for a party. Send $300. I always sent the money, hoping they'd finally appreciate me. But Lily never said thank you. She'd just take the money and post pictures of her new purchases online, looking happy and carefree, while I was struggling to make ends meet. About a year before that fateful dinner, I paid off a huge credit card bill for Lily. When I told her not to use it again, she rolled her eyes and said, Alexa, you're so stingy. It's just money. Mom didn't defend me. Instead, she said, don't start a fight, Alexa. We're having a nice day. That was when I realized they were just using me. After I left that night, I thought I'd finally escaped. But a month later, I ran into my cousin, Sarah, at the grocery store. She told me that Lily was opening a boutique and that the funding was in my name. I was shocked. I rushed to the bank and found out that they'd taken out loans in my name without my consent. They'd used my old birth certificate and forged my signature. I called Dad and met him at a diner. He admitted that Mom had done it, but he said he couldn't stop her. He said, you're strong, Alexa. You can handle it. Lily can't. That was the final straw. I decided to protect myself. I found a fraud lawyer, Mr. Thompson. He listened to my story and gave me two choices. I could either accept the debt, which would ruin my credit and take me years to pay off, or I could file an affidavit of identity theft and have the banks investigate. I chose the latter. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork. I closed all my shared bank accounts, put a lock on my credit report, and worked with Mr. Thompson to build a case. When the banks froze the funds and the boutique lease was cancelled, Mom and Lily went crazy. They called and texted me, begging and threatening. I changed my number and disappeared. Over the last 10 years, I rebuilt my life. I paid off my student loans, bought my apartment, and made friends who liked me for who I was. But I always kept that file, a thick black binder with all the evidence of their fraud, in a fireproof safe in my closet. Now, with 35 missed calls from Mom, I know exactly what's going on. I dialed the number, and Mom's voice came through, high-pitched and terrified. Alexa, please come home. The police are here. They're talking about arrest warrants for Lily. She started a new business and used your name again. I took a deep breath and said, what did she do? Mom cried, it's a misunderstanding. She just needed some bridge loans, and somehow your name got on the paperwork. I asked, how much? She sobbed, $50,000. She then pleaded with me to tell the police I authorized it. I closed my eyes. They hadn't learned a thing. I said, she forged my signature again. Mom tried to excuse it, saying it was a digital signature and not a crime. But I knew better. I told her I'd meet them at a cafe near their house the next morning. I drove to my hometown, knowing I wasn't going to save them. I was going to end this once and for all. When I walked into the cafe, they were already there. Mom looked old and haggard, and Lily looked like a mess. Mom's face lit up with hope when she saw me. She whispered, thank you for coming. You just need to call the detective and say it was an authorized family arrangement. I looked at them and said, you don't have the money, and Lily has spent it all. I saw the records, shopping sprees, and a trip to Hawaii. Lily flinched and said she was trying to win the money back. Mom interrupted, saying Lily was sorry. But I could tell it was just for show. I said, I can't make that call because I'm the one who called the police. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's mouth dropped open, and Lily's eyes widened in shock. I opened the binder and showed them the police report I'd filed 3 weeks ago. I explained that I'd received an alert about the loan and had immediately called Mr. Thompson. Mom turned purple with anger and said, you sent the police to our house? I replied, Lily sent the police to your house. She committed a felony, and I just reported it. Lily screamed, you have so much money. You could have just paid it. I calmly said, you stole from me twice. I gave you 10 years to change, but you didn't. Mom grabbed my wrist and said, you'll call them and retract this, or you're dead to me. I pulled my arm back and said, I was dead to you the moment I stopped paying. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and said, the detective has all the evidence. It's out of my hands now. Mom started to cry, begging me not to walk away. But I turned around and walked out. Over the next few months, the consequences unfolded. Lily took a plea deal and was sentenced to 2 years in prison and 5 years of probation. She was also ordered to pay restitution. Mom lost the house because she'd spent all her savings on Lily's defense. Dad moved in with his brother in another state. I received a letter from Mom a few months later. She wrote that I was a cold-hearted girl and that I'd destroyed the family. But as I read the letter, I realized she still didn't understand. She still didn't take responsibility. 2 years later, when Lily was released from prison, she called me. She said she had nothing, that Mom was living in a dump, and that she couldn't get a job with a felony record. She expected me to help her, but I told her, you put yourself in there. You'll figure it out without me. I forgave her, not for her, but for myself. I didn't want to carry the anger anymore. I blocked her number and changed my own. I walked forward into my life, hand in hand with my boyfriend, Mark. He's a kind-hearted musician who loves me for who I am, not for what I can give. I finally feel free, and I know I'll never let anyone take advantage of me again.